Hey, this is Robert. Thank you for tuning into Station Square. We have a special guest who has been involved in animation and just doing a lot of, yeah, their resume just really speaks for them for itself. This is Talya Perper. I
Yes,
hope I'm,
that's
yeah.
correct.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, how is it going on this lovely Saturday afternoon?
That's good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to answer all of the questions you have and talk about my experience working in boards and like any helpful anecdotes that can help your audience.
Yeah, so I guess to really start this out, how is this year like for you when it comes to, work, life? Just give us the quick rundown.
I guess lately it's been good. I feel very fortunate to be working on Teen Titans Go. It's been multiple seasons in a row, which again is kind of unprecedented when it comes to working in animation. It's very rare to find a show that is like going for multiple seasons. So, knock on wood, I stay as long as they will have me. Right now we're in a cleanup week, so on Titans it's a 4 week schedule. So we get the scripts at the beginning, and we have a kickoff meeting with the director, and he gives me all the direction and intention for like this is how I want to treat this half of the episode. I get my assignments, my scenes, and I start thinking about thumbnails, and that's like the most thinky pain of like taking something from zero to something. So that's the first 2 weeks, and then usually by the end of those 2 weeks, we have a full rough cut of the episode, and it looks pretty scraggly, but it's like all the creative decisions are there, all the blocking is there, the character acting. It just looks a little rough around the edges, and then we show that to the showrunner, and he gives his notes, and then once I address those notes, then I can start cleanup, which is just like making the drawings a little more beautiful. So that's the phase that I'm in currently, is like the tedious work of making things look legible enough that when we send it to the animators in Canada, or the in-house animators that we have, they have all the information that they need, the blueprint for what the episode is going to ultimately look like. So boards, you have to go pretty fast. And so I don't have to have everything completely on model as long as the proportions are correct and all the acting decisions are there and the compositional decisions are there. And then design and animation and post production, they're the ones who make the episode beautiful and TV ready. So that's my current status right now. I'm in cleanup phase, and then at the end of next week, we start it all over again, and it's just one episode after another. So that's my life currently, is working on Teen Titans Go.
Right on. And what would you say was something that kind of got you started with, doing animation and so on and so forth?
What got me started? I mean, I guess I knew I wanted to do something that was the intersection of art and writing when I was in high school. And I ended up going to film school because I felt like, oh, like that's an even broader category of that sort of intersection, right? So I went to Boston University for film school, and my degree is like I'm a film and TV major. So I took a lot of classes in like film analysis and like production and directing and stuff like that. But it was mostly live action stuff. So like a lot of my student films were live action. And it was only after I came out to LA for my internship program in the last semester of my senior year that I started making more connections in animation and finding other people who were doing the same thing that I wanted to do for my life. So that was a real game changer, like finding people who understood that industry a little more intimately. And long story short, I had a series of day jobs, like the things that would just like keep the lights on. I was an admin intern, admin assistant at this graphic design company that made movie posters. And so most of my job was like receptionisty type stuff, but also watching the movies that they were making posters about and synopsizing them so that the designers didn't have to spend like 2 hours watching a movie when they should be designing. So like I would just tell them like this is what the movie is. So I was kind of using my degree. And that was a good baseline for like, okay, I have a job. I have an apartment with my boyfriend, who is now my husband, and we came out together to make it easier to live out here. And then while I was working, I was also taking classes in figure drawing, storyboarding, etc., to get my draftsmanship up more. Because when I was in film school, they didn't have that many like art specific classes that you could take that were relevant to your major. So I missed out on a lot of that stuff, and I needed to supplement my education somehow. So I took online classes, and like one of my biggest teachers was this guy Rad Seacrest, who has this school called Project City TV that I now teach for. So it's all like a full circle moment. So he taught me figure drawing, storyboarding, and that really helped me get my skills up enough that I could start taking storyboard tests. A storyboard test is essentially a job application where they say like, okay, here's a sample of a script, or like here's an outline for a scene that we want to test you on to see if you can storyboard in the style of the show that we want that you're applying for, essentially. And so they give you a short sample to be like, hey, manifest this, draw it, and then and you have like a week to do it. And it definitely favors people who are unemployed and they have nothing better to do than just do a job application for a week. So they don't do that kind of stuff as much anymore because it's like a little bit exploitative. But that being said, I got some of my first jobs from taking tests because my portfolio was not like impressive by any means, but the tests really helped me prove that I was a team player and that I could take direction well. And so while I was working at these day jobs, I was taking tons of tests, and like I got rejected from a lot of them, but a couple of them hit. And so I ended up working at Pickle and Peanut, which was the show on Disney XD. That was like really weird and surreal. And
Yeah.
it
Oh
was
my
kind of
God.
like a
Yeah.
miracle that it even ended up like being on Disney of all places, like the one of the most polished places to make animation, and like this weird show just like miraculously ended up on that on that channel. And so I had some friends who I met at a drink and draw where like you know, you go to a bar and you bring your sketchbook and you're like drawing along with other people who are like essentially your peers. Um, and then so I was talking with some of them, and a couple of my friends worked on that show, and they were saying like, "Oh, uh they're actually telling us to draw worse cuz like bad drawings are funny." And I was like, "Oh, good. That's like the only thing I can do right now." So I reached out to a recruiter there. Like one of my friends gave me the email for the recruiter at the time, and I just said like, "Hey, like I'm a storyboarder, so I'm just curious if you're testing for any shows right now." And the recruiter at the time was Brooke Kiesling, and she's a very prolific recruiter. And she was like, "Oh yeah, we are testing for Pickle and Peanut." And so I took the tests, and I did well enough to impress the people there. And so I started working there for just a short amount of time because at the time I was really really green, and I think after a few weeks they kind of realized that like, oh, she needs a little bit more training to be like ready to hit the ground running, and they just didn't have the bandwidth at the time. So after like a little less than an episode, they were like, like we're gonna go in a different direction. And so I was like, oh no. And so I went through the whole process again of like taking tests and applying to things. And like maybe a year later I got Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs also from a test. And that was like the complete opposite experience because I was one of the first board artists on the show. It was like a totally new show. And uh I think I just understood the comedic sensibilities of the show more. Like it was more uh how I naturally think about jokes. And so it was a good match. And I ended up staying there and later getting promoted to director there, which was like so awesome. Definitely a career highlight. Um, and so from there, Yaba got canceled because of the AT&T merger. Essentially, like it was originally designed for this app called Boomerang, which was like a phone app where you could like watch legacy properties like Looney Tunes and stuff for like $5 a month. But then when HBO Max came on the scene, it was like, oh well, why do we have this app? And so they were cutting costs, and Yaba was one of those costs, sadly. But then when everyone was scrambling to find new stuff, I took a test for Teen Titans Go, and Teen Titans Go had the same pipeline as Yaba. It was like in Adobe Animate, 4 week schedule, animatics. Like I was already in a good position to hit the ground running working there. And so I started working on Titans January 2019, and I've been there ever since. And that's like my origin story essentially. Sorry to go
That's
on for a long time.
yeah, no worries. It's a fun little origin, which it's like it just led to one thing. It's kind of like you brought up something that's really interesting, how you just kind of bounced from one gig to the next, and then it just kind of led you to, oh my gosh, I'm here now. Okay.
Yeah, it took
Yeah,
finding a
it's
really good
yeah.
match for my sensibilities. Like, I think that's something that people outside of the industry don't necessarily understand when they come to LA. Because I think on the East Coast, animation and storyboarding is seen more as like, oh, if you can do it one place, you can do it anywhere. But in LA, it feels more like casting actors. Like, the board artists are deciding character acting in a lot of scenarios. So like if someone, like every board artist treats a scene a little bit differently, and some board artists are going to be a better match for one type of show as opposed to another. Like if you're really action oriented, you would be a good match for something like Avatar: The Last Airbender. But like I personally am more of a like sitcom comedy character acting person, so I do well on stuff like Teen Titans Go, which is very like character acting heavy. Like I usually get scenes that are like, oh, the top half of an episode where they're explaining like exposition of like, oh, we got to go to this secondary location and like these are the stakes and blah blah blah. And it would be boring if a different person did it, like cause maybe the script's kind of dry or something, but like because I'm adding a lot of interesting poses and I'm making like creative decisions in the moment that add visual interest, I can take something that would otherwise be dry and make it interesting and engaging. So like that's my bread and butter, but like every board artist is a little bit different.
Oh, that is so true because taking something that is because you get like something like whether it's a script or just storyboards that might seem, a little standard, but you use your own sensibilities to actually make it really interesting and have like a visual, like, you just giving like an energy and a push that it might not have had initially. So I'm just really glad that you touched on that.
Yeah.
And just making it more fun. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and I think it's an engaging, creative
Oh yeah.
challenge for me, like because so
Yeah.
much of storyboarding is problem solving. Like, how do you make this clear? How do you make it clear to the audience what's happening? What are the stakes? What's the conflict? Who is this character? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I think is really fun. It's so I mean, a job's a job. Like work is work. Like sometimes I'm like hammering against a wall to like get through to the other side. I'm usually happy with the final product, even if it's like good enough. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
long as it's clear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I know your answer probably might be Teen Titans Go at this point, but what would you say are some of your, I guess, the projects that you've really had the most fun on, or just stuff that you're really the most proud of, most exciting,
Hmm.
that you've done in your career, and specifically this year? Like, just share about your portfolio if you can.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I don't have that long of a list of projects that I've been on because I think a majority of my career now is Teen Titans Go because I've been working there
Yeah.
since 2019. That was like the beginning of season 6, and now I think they announced season 10, and I can say that I'm working on season 10. So that's definitely been a majority of my career, and I feel like I'm finally like it takes a long time to find your voice. But I feel now when I look at my work, I'm like, oh yeah, this is me. Like I feel like I'm expressing myself more clearly now. That being said, when I was directing on Yaba, that was a real career highlight for me in the sense that I realized how fun it is to interact with other artists because when you're a storyboard artist or even a revisionist, the assignment is here's your scene. You're thinking about nothing but the scene for the next like month or so. And so the most human interaction you have during that time is with either A, your board partner who is like sharing the episode with you, or B, your director who like you need to receive notes from. And like that's your singular focus. But when you're a director, uh, your attention is split between two board artists that you're giving direction to, and there's more of a human element that you need to balance of like how do I get the best performance out of these actors essentially, like how do I get the best out of their strengths and dodge their weaknesses perhaps, like for me, I recognize the fact that, character acting comes very naturally to me, but action is something that I sometimes struggle with, like thinking about it, like whatever my first thought is. So I'm trying to spread my wings in that direction, but if I was a director for someone like that, I would definitely want to put them on scenes that feature heavy character acting to get the most out of them. And then there's like the human element of how do I communicate with this specific person, because like how do I speak their language, how do I make sure that they feel motivated and not downtrodden of like, oh, like I got all these notes, I guess I've never done anything right ever. You want to make sure that people feel like they are doing a good job and that they are contributing good ideas. That stuff was really interesting to me. I like engaging with other artists and I like hyping them up. So it is a balance. You got to make sure that the episode's rolling in the right direction and that it feels good and is funny. But you also want to make sure that your artists are doing their best work, and sometimes that requires you to like assess them psychologically, which I think is interesting. So I guess in terms of like highlights, I'd say directing on Yabo was really awesome, and then the work that I'm doing on Titans, you kind of have to be your own director to start. You have to anticipate issues that your director would otherwise give you notes on. So it helps to be a self starter and it helps to be critical and analytical of your own work. So there's that. And then I have personal projects that I work on intermittently. I don't always have the bandwidth for stuff, but right now I'm kind of in a fan art renaissance. So I'm just following that momentum as far as I can take it. And like, if people want to follow me and my work, I'm at Tare Tari on Instagram and Twitter and such.
How's that going? The fan art thing.
Oh, it's fun. Like, I mean, right now I guess my hyperfixation is Deltarune, the video game. And so the latest two chapters came out like maybe July-ish, if I remember correctly. And as soon as I finished those chapters, I was like struck by a bolt of inspiration. And I've made more comics in the last month or so than I have in like the last couple of years. So I'm trying to follow the momentum as much as I can just so that I can like continue making stuff and like exploring things that I wouldn't necessarily be able to do on Titans. Like they don't really do romance that much, and like I think there's some really interesting ships that I've been exploring with my comics. So it's just reminding me how fun creative work can be, and it definitely fills my cup at the end of the day of like, you do stuff for work, and I love working on Titans, don't get me wrong. But I think I felt like my identity was getting really tied to the show, and I wanted to explore things that make me happy that aren't necessarily things that I would do on the show, just to like remember who I am. You know what I mean? So hopefully I can also apply that to my original ideas because I I have an animatic short on my social media. I think you can find it on TikTok or Instagram, called Therapy Time with Dr. Cuddles, which is like a version of a development idea I had at a certain point that I condensed into more of a short. Uh, that's like a hardened, like a hard boiled cop on the edge who has like a court appointed therapy dog, who is like teaching him about emotional education and stuff like that. So I'd like to do more shorts in that series, but I need to plan myself out and like organize my bandwidth in such a way that I can work on it consistently. So that's kind of what's in my creative world right now. We'll see where it goes. Who knows?
Yeah, and since you kind of brought up social media, I know that it can also be a nice outlet for artists to really share their work, like especially when it comes to these the fan art stuff that you see. Like I think since you brought up the Looney Tunes earlier, I know that there was this thing that was going on where artists, like I think it was over 100 of them that did their own interpretation of the Looney Tunes characters. And
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, for like 100 days. Yeah, it was a big thing that happened on Twitter. I know his name. Why is it? I think it was Dave Alvarez, or I think it was Dave or somebody that did that.
Mm.
So it's just really fun to just see artists come up with their own unique, just because with the Looney Tunes and how you mentioned like the boomerang stuff, like when you're watching a short or just when you're watching, certain episodes, you can just watch different eras of different animation styles of how the industry was back in the day, and then you watch something that is from the 90s or 2000s, 2010s, and you can just kind of see how the stuff just kind of evolved, or just things definitely had changed a lot over the
Mm.
years. So it's just really nice that, in your case, you're just finding new ways to just keep on, reinventing yourself, and just also finding new ways to, because as artists, we kind of tend to just feel like we kind of struggle with the imposter syndrome or just get stuck or so on and so forth. But I think it really does help to just explore different stuff outside of what you know, what I mean by that is like know what you're capable of, know your strengths and weaknesses, but also kind of, discipline yourself. Just challenge yourself with stuff like that. Might be a little bit outside your alley, but in a way, it can kind of be, really fun and just really make sure it can also help you grow just as a person and just as an artist.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
so one of the things I do on the side outside of storyboarding full time is I do storyboard coaching. So like if people want to book me for an hour of time just to go over like a personal project that they're working on or their portfolio, or they just need like some career advice, like what's the next step for me? You know, like how do I take myself to the next level? I talk with various clients who book me, and one of the things that I think is a universal piece of advice that I think can be helpful for anyone is like assessing like what's your comfort zone now, and then how do you take like one step outside of your comfort zone? Because I think a lot of people get bogged down by these really ambitious ideas that are like zooming towards like the top of the taste gap. Like this is where you are now. This is where you want to be, and then people get paralyzed realizing like, oh, I'm so far away from where I want to be. Like they talk a big game, but then they can't really manifest their ambitions because they're insecure about where they are. So what I tell them is like, let's shrink the scope a little bit. Let's figure out like what's something that when you think about doing it, you're like, oh, I can do that for sure. Like that's just one step outside my comfort zone instead of like a mile outside of my comfort zone, you know? And then the more you accomplish projects, the more you complete things, that's how you learn. That like doing is the best way to learn. So so really assessing like what is feasible for me right now, and how do I take one, like how do I learn one new thing that I can fold into my palette of tools, uh, that will eventually get you up to the top of the mountain. Like if you keep looking at your feet and taking one step at a time, that's how you like meditatively end up at the goal that you wanted to achieve. So that's just like a general thing that I think could be helpful for anybody.
Right on. And what is also something that you just really love so much, just being in animation, just working on Teen Titans Go and just doing all these amazing, just, working on a lot of this stuff to begin with?
What's my favorite aspect of the job?
Yeah, favorite aspect, and what do you cherish so much of just working in animation, period?
I guess uh I like doing the character acting. I like working to audio. I think that's something that some people don't like as much. Like they just want to focus on the boards, like the composition stuff, which obviously is like part and parcel what boarding is. But I like the control that you get timing wise with the animatics. Hi, little cat. Uh, and I like the satisfaction of boarding to audio because it feels like when I'm listening to dialogue from a voice actor, to me it's analogous with listening to music. And you hear these like ebbs and flows in the cadence of how someone says something. Like maybe they say something like this. And so I'm like, oh, okay, like the maybe something and this all have like a key beat that I want to put a big pose on. And then I ask myself like, oh, what's the like how do I include enough contrast, enough like squash and stretch or like some interesting details that will keep this engaging throughout the whole scene. And I like adding jokes where like it's not necessarily something that's overtly described in the script, but like I like thinking about how characters are motivated and like, oh, what would they do in this scenario? Like Beast Boy's not talking in this particular scene, but maybe I can give him something to do that if you happen to look in the right direction, you'll see that he's doing something funny over there. I like getting the positive feedback from my bosses of like, oh, this was really funny. Like, I didn't even think to do this type of thing, but like, it made me laugh. Um, I like connecting with other artists in that way where we're doing things to make each other laugh because the that's usually a green flag for like, oh, okay, like it will be funny if it's making me laugh right now in real time. So those are the most like engaging parts for me about boarding on Titans, and boarding in general.
I just really love how you can just come up with new ideas that may not even be there like originally, and that's what makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's something that also isn't talked about enough in storyboarding 101 type classes is that you got to read between the lines a little bit. It like you're given a script, but like if you approach it completely straightforwardly, then it might be a little boring. You know, like if it's just like blah 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 blah. Like maybe we can add something that says something about the power dynamic or like for example, one general rule of thumb I tell people is that the amount of real estate that something takes up on the screen indicates something about how important it is. So, like, if you have a big, if you want to express the fact that a background is wide and expansive, like, you might want to show your main character relatively tiny compared to this big background. You wouldn't want to zoom in on the character because that communicates something else. Like close ups communicate emotional information or detail information, and wide shots show spatial information generally. So depending on the decisions you make compositionally, you're going to be communicating different things with your boards. Um, yeah, sorry, I went out on a tangent, but it's fun. It's an interesting problem solving challenge.
Yeah. So real quick before we do wrap this up, you mentioned like when we were talking like off camera, we mentioned a website called SkillsUp, which you just recently joined.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that and how it's also been able to help you just, I guess, really expand your acting chops in animation.
yeah. I'm still really new to the platform, but Jennifer Hale runs this website called
Oh man,
skillshub.life.
love Jennifer. Yeah,
She's
amazing.
awesome, super prolific, awesome lady. Really committed to educating people on voice acting, giving them the tools to like build their careers, which is so great and so generous. They're recently expanding to include more types of courses. So I am offering my services as a storyboard expert to coach people on the pipelines. I think there's a lot of people who are interested in voiceover, but they don't necessarily know that much about animation. So I'm happy to talk to people about, like, hey, this is like generally how it works. This is how I engage with your voice acting down the line. And so that helps prospective voice actors understand, like, oh, okay, it's good to have like a couple of alts for like choices to like, how can I interpret a character or the way that a character expresses one line or another so that it gives interesting decisions for the board artist or the director to make about, like, oh, okay, we could go this way or we could go that way, like having some interesting range. And then, I usually end up picking the shortest read because we only have 11 minutes to do what we need to do. So if someone's chewing on a line for a long time, I'm probably not going to use that version. I'm going to use the one that can like keep the runtime low. But different shows have different policies about what tone they're going for, so it's important to have like some feedback with the voice actors. But anyway, I'm on this website skillshub.life. They have a lot of really interesting classes and these things called workout rooms where you can essentially join a chat, like a voice chat or like a Zoom video thing with other peers of yours who are trying to do the same thing, and learning from them and getting someone to look over your shoulder and like look at your portfolio and tell you if you're on the right track, and like it's a really great resource. So I wanted to shout them out and say, like, hey, if you're interested in this kind of thing, check it out.
Yeah, just check out Skills Up. Because why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, I also teach for another online school called Project City. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. Maybe we were talking about it off camera. But projectcity.tv is a more storyboard forward online school, like more for visual artists who are interested in animation and making their own stuff consistently. So I teach a class called Storyboard Case Studies where I take clips of things that I've boarded and I show you how they went from script to screen so that you can really understand, like, okay, this is the information that I was given, and these are all the creative decisions I had to make to get it ready for TV. And there's a lot that goes into it mentally. So I try to frame it as an exercise for your analytical brain, so that you can start recognizing things that are working in media that you like. It can really apply to anything like animation or otherwise. But if you can look at something that's like film or media of any kind and ask yourself, like, why is this working? Why is this composition working? What information is being delivered by this shot? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm really interested in. So if you're interested in something like that, you can subscribe to projectcity.tv. The story sprint tier is the one that includes all the live weekly classes and all the recording backlogs. So I think it's like 33 bucks a month. And even if you sub for 1 month, it's like I've taught the storyboard case studies class like I have like 15 different classes in the backlog at this point. So like divided by 33 bucks a month, that's like $2 a class. And then like compound that by every other teacher on the platform who has a backlog of their own. Uh it's like a fraction of the cost of art school. And I think it's a really fantastic resource for people who are like exploring that career, or like they need some supplemental education on top of art school or film school or anything else. Like, um yeah, I highly recommend it. Not not that I'm biased or anything, but just wanted to shout them out too.
Right, yeah. It seems like you got quite a few stuff coming up, so just staying busy and keeping on just keeping those creative, those muscles just continuing to grow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah. Let me see, because I know a lot about like, and especially when you're talking about, collaborating with others, it's like, especially when you're the client, not the client, the director, and you're overseeing a lot of the production stuff. Like I've already shared, like I own stuff, and now, you're working with a team of artists and writers that have their own ideas, and I just really love it when you collaborate and just really see so many unique voices up on the screen.
Yeah, I think connecting with other artists is the sauce.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
that's what really
yeah,
makes me come alive when it comes to
for
creative
sure.
work. Another piece of advice that I give to people who are like just starting out or interested in diving into animation is network genuinely with your peers. Because I think like there's a lot of people who think like, oh, I'll go to a convention and I'll reach out to like my favorite established artists and like I'll suddenly become their best friend and then they'll give me a job somehow. And most of the time it's more that like you have a circle of friends that you like came up with and you're lifting each other up and encouraging each other's work, and then one of those friends inevitably gets a job and then they recommend you because they're like, "Oh, I love working with this person. They're already doing amazing work." Like I feel like this is a vetted choice. And I think that's really where the sauce is, like connecting with people who are already on your level or like maybe one step above you. That's where it's at. So I really encourage people to find the artist communities in their immediate vicinity. And if they don't exist, create them. Like do a drink and draw, like do a movie night, like make a film club, like make a place where artists can gather. Like, and if you build it, they will come. You know what I mean? So yeah, like reaching out to people online, like gassing up their work and be like, "Oh, I love this character design you did," or like, "I love this board that you did." That's where it's at. So I encourage people to do anything that motivates them to make stuff on their own.
Man, I think that's the best piece of advice to end out this interview. So I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. And anything else that you want to share, promote before we wrap
Oh,
up?
I guess like if people want to follow my work, again, I'm at Tare Tare on most social media. I think like if you Google Talya Perper, Talyaperper, uh, you can find my stuff on socials and yeah, happy to talk to anyone with coaching. I like again my coaching service. I talk to people on Zoom. If you want to book me, just send me a DM or an email to Talia Perper plus inquiries at Gmail. And I'm happy to talk to whoever wants to show me their work.
Great. I guess with that said, thank you so much for watching. Stick around next time on Station Square. And until then, this is Robert Jackson signing out. And have a great Saturday or whichever day it is on time zone. It's kind of weird. But, anyways, take care, y'all. Have a good one. God
Bye
bless.
bye.
Bye bye.